Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm Wapishki Kizasikwe. My English name is Mindy. I'm the Coon Rapids Cluster Advisor. I'm here with my coworker Gabriella. Gabriella? Awesome. We are hosting Rocky Makes Room for Them, who is an amazing educator and just an awesome storyteller. I've only got to know him for a short time, but anytime he tells a story, it is a treat. And so we're super honored to be hosting him tonight. Feel free to type questions in the chat as we get going, but we are going to ask you to keep yourselves muted unless prompted by Rocky for time for questions, but for sure feel free to type into the chat. And so Rocky and Gabriella and I can see what you guys are typing. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Rocky to tell you all about himself and kick it off. Miigwech, Pidamiaye.
Mitak yepi leche hahipiki and Cucumbi imachiapolo naha ayuha chante washte na peche usapolo and wocheki eki hana wankata kia hana chaotala wina we will yateki na uyuteki na kaga na mini wichoni no wichozenikta. Ana daku wakha daku shkashka. Ana makas domini yateki na wichozani na yateki. Ana tokae alon kile. Ana ble chiayo na chante tinza. Ana duksha iya Hesapa hetawa na Pteoyate, Hematancha, Makocheki, Lemithawae, Atewina ina Ea Blechia Chante Matiza, and Ataku Ashtek the low. Hesapa hetawa na. Te oya te he mata cha mako cheke le metawaya ate wina ina maka heya macha ble mechi chante matize. Hey, yaho, wele, daku, wash, take the low. Hey, oh. Hey, sapa, hey, da, wauna. Te, oya, te, hey, mata, cha. Mako, cheke, le, metawaya. Ate wina ina maka heya macha ble mechi chante mateze heya yaho hey taku washtake the long hey oh. It says the words on there talk about, it says, I am born from the Buffalo Nation, born from the Black Hills, and these lands are mine. Father, Son, and Mother Earth, they told me to find courage and to have a strong heart, and whatever it is will be good that day. And so that's encouraging songs, and it's good to start off storytelling in a way like that, something that's been done for thousands and thousands of years of storytelling. And say Wopila for letting me be in your space tonight. I'm a Lakota from Rosebud, South Dakota, the Sicangu the burnt thighs. That's what we're called. That's what they call us, the burnt thighs. Some of you are burnt thighs people. I know you are. There's some Lakotas out there, Dakotas, Nakotas. We're kind of all in the same, but we speak a little different. So I speak with the L, like kola, right? As a friend, kola. So a Dakota would say koda, and a Nakota would say kona. So we all understand each other. We have to listen a little harder. And so I have a hard time listening to Dakota speakers because I'm not used to all these D's, and so it's fun listening to them though. I was lucky enough to grow up learning and speaking this kind of language and these kind of ways, and I was really it was good to have some storytelling, and it was a different kind of storytelling from when I grew up. We had stories that were told, especially in the wintertime, and they would be told over like 4 days, right? They have these sacred numbers, and 4 is one of them numbers, and so my grandma was a really good storyteller, and my dad was too, and they would start a story and cut us off and leave us all with these cliffhangers every night of wanting more and begging for more, and it was bedtime, so it was really cool, a cool time, and we were in it was a different time. It was in the 70s, and there would be like literally like 20 kids over laid out on the living room floor, right? And my grandma would make popcorn. It was real cool. And so it's really I learned about my last name even, right? I have a last name. It makes room for them. And to me, it doesn't get any more native than that. Keel right? That's how that's what it means. And I would like tonight to share how I got my last name, because it's very important about identity and who we are. And I think stories like these remind us of who we are, where we come from. And everybody has a story. And if you don't, then make one up and start retelling it and make it come alive and make your children tell it. And there's nothing wrong with starting a tradition. Maybe it'll carry on for hundreds of years. Why not? Mine did. Mine is a story of long ago. And so I want to share that with you. I had a good chance of thinking what I really want to talk about, and maybe I'll have enough time for other stories, but I think it's very important to find out the bigger picture of it all is who we are, where we are, and who we can be, what we can evolve to. And I know there's a lot of young listeners out there, and before I start any storytelling, what I like to do is I have sage, right? And some of you have sage at home. And I wish I could turn on my light more, but actually the light on my fan in my room, I pulled it and it came out, right? And so like I have no puller thing. So I got all these candles around me. This is what's got all these lights around me. So it's like perfect time for something to break. So this is the sage, and Preji Chota. Preji Chota. It's got a guttural. You can hear the sound, right? Preji Chota. You get it really sloppy and get a lot of spit in there and everything, right? Preji Chota. That's what our language is. We have lots of guttural sounds. We have like 46 sounds in our alphabet. And these are the sounds, we realize these are the sounds that we hear inside our mother's belly. And sh and all these sounds. And so when some of our Lakota babies are born, they can understand a lot of Lakota. That's a whole nother story, but that's true. Because when babies coo, they make noises. And Lakota speaking babies, they coo and they say ina, which means mom. It's weird. It's cool. So this preji chota, preji is a word we describe as grass. Preji. Chota is the adjective. It's describing a color, like gray or silver, silver. Preji chota. And it has a spirit. It has a spirit. Everything that is alive has a spirit. Plants, animals, rocks. Lots of things can't fly. Rocks. Land Before Time movie. I don't know if you guys ever saw that first one, but that was the reference of that one. Anyway, so this Peshijota has a spirit, and it has a voice. And we realize that some of us can hear these voices, and we've learned to use it. And I like to use it for moments like these. And there's lots of reasons to use this. And I like to share even those teachings with you, because it's important to remind us why we're using this and what it's for. And maybe we can start using it if we don't know what it is. We don't have to be weary of it or anything. And, you know, so it's, this grows in our space. This is what grows in our community. It does right here. It grows along the river. I find little wild patches of it here and there. There's some, and so it's all over the place. It's a prairie plant. It has its own constellation in its sky too, instead of stars. And so it is so powerful enough and sacred enough that sometimes we don't even need to light it to use it. And we keep it with some of our sacred things that we think of that we hold sacred, like maybe feathers or a pipe or things like that. And so that's how powerful this is. Like, and so what it does is, alone, it has the ability to make things like safe and neutral, kind of like make things good even. And some may say it even chases away things, chases away bad energy. All these words are fun to say because it makes you think a lot of what are those things we're talking about? Energy and spirits, like. And it's something that we've learned to listen to, and they have a voice. And so this is what the sage does. It actually helps us listen. As adults, sometimes we're even hard listeners. We really maybe like to talk, and you really got to get what we have to say out important. Or somebody says something interesting, and then we have to say something interesting about it. And so I have a hard time with that. So this is a daily practice, actually, using sage, and it helps you listen and helps you speak with the heart. Speak from the heart. It's different speaking from the heart than speaking with your mind. And so, you know, this is why I want to be able to speak from the heart with you tonight. And and maybe there's some energy in here that, you know, can be suspicious, but it's sacred enough where you don't even have to light it. So if you kids are at home, you naughty kids, don't you dare light this by yourself and play with matches and all that things. Don't even have to set up like what I got here, all these candles. But if you have parents, uncles, aunties, grandmas that are around you, and you do have sage or cedar or sweetgrass, these are the things we use to help storytelling, to help listening, to help connect. And so this is it right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little piece, and I am actually going to light it and burn it because I really like the smell of it. And recently, scientifically, in NASA magazine, right? Crazy, right? They talked about sage, and they said that it's scientifically proven that it does clear the energy in a room. However, they came up with some science instrument. I could have told you that. So this is the sage, right? And so let's light it. You don't need to light this big, huge branch or big, huge thing of it, right? You just need a little bit. I see somebody lighting some sage in your webcam, and I appreciate that. So we do it all together. If you have it, we all be on the same wave, right? So that's cool. And we'll put these vibes out there for you, for those that don't have this in your home. But this is something that we should all practice every day. And actually, I actually want to, since I all have you on your listeners, I actually I'm kind of against one word that I find in mainstream nowadays, and I'm not, and even when I first heard it a long time ago in the 80s, I wasn't a big fan of the word, and it's smudging. I'm not a big fan of the words, though, even the word smudging. So I'm trying to get out of that cycle of calling it smudging, because there's like a negative connotation to it. And then in Lakota word, the Lakota word we use isn't smudging, has nothing to do with smudging. So I think that's an English word that we've used and kind of adapted to. And I think we need to like rethink that and call it something else maybe. And Lakota, we call it Wazilia. Wazilia. We're going to Wazilia something. That means something like, the best way I could describe it is to like re-energize it, or to refresh it, or to purify. But anyways, I even have to find a better word for, I like to just use Wazilia. Why can't we just say Wazilia? Anyways, that's my sage teachings, and this is like, you know, something I do to prepare sage, and before I talk and listen, even especially if I want to listen, if I'm going to go listen, I would like to sage, because I want to be able to listen with my heart, and so I'm going to go into my storytelling, and appreciate you guys' time, and so Q Cumpy. Q Cumpy. All right, that's what I call myself, and that's what I've been called for a long time, and makes room for them, right? When I was in kindergarten, they taught us how to write our names, right? And like, I had a friend, and his last name was Smith, and like, man, he had like the easiest last name to write, and you know, it's 5 letters, and he can make the big S as big as he wanted, and so like, here's me, all right, kindergartner, okay, Rocky, get up to the board and write makes room for them. Have fun with that. 16 letters. And so you know, you adapt and overcome. So a long time ago, there was a family, and then that family unit, they called themselves the Wambili Omani Wakinigo. It was a family, a Wakinigo family, and eventually that family over time became Wambili Chikala, Little Eagle family, Teoshpai. And so out of this Little Eagle family, it takes place on the plains, and they're in their teepees. It's teepee living, and it's in the summertime. And the story really has a lot of questions for me, and but I'll tell it, and I want to fair warn you that it may sound like even like a Scooby-Doo story, maybe a little spooky, but it's not. You know, it's an interesting story, and I'm still learning about it, and I love retelling it, because there's so much hidden messages and hidden symbolisms, and I figured out some of it, and it's just a life learning thing for me. So long ago, the families, they lived in teepees on the prairie, and it's in the summertime, and in the mornings, unfortunately, we hear a lot of crying in the morning, and they're young mothers, and they realized that, like, one of them woke up and they realized that their baby wasn't around in their teepee, and so everybody went out looking for it, and they have no idea where it went. And so all day they looked and they didn't find it, and so the next night they all went to bed with sad hearts, and in the morning they heard another cry, and another child went missing. And so all the people finally got together, and they thought about it, and they were wondering what kind of ideas could they have, what they don't know what's going on, we have to get to the bottom of this. And so one of the elders said, well, let's put a teepee up, and we will bundle up some cloth and some material, and we'll make a pretend baby. We'll make a little baby, and we're gonna try to trick it, and maybe we're gonna pretend that this baby is real. And so they're gonna make a trap. All the men, all the warriors, they get together, and somebody makes a little baby in a bundle and a blanket, and they put it in the teepee, and all the men are all ready, and they kind of just all disappear, right? They just kind of hiding out in the bushes or hiding close near, maybe in other teepees, but they're around, and they're waiting. And so in the middle of the night, they started making little baby noises, cooing around, and maybe a little laugh, and maybe even a little cry, right? And that night, the sound travels really far. And so the baby starts crying, they're making baby noises, and then sure enough, the ground starts shaking, like thumping, and they realize like something's coming. And something comes so fast that it comes like a blur, and it comes in and enters the teepee even and grabs the baby, the fake baby, and then like he's making a run for it even. And it's a blur, but they're not quite sure what it is. And all the warriors, they grab their bows and arrows and their spears, and they're all running and they're following it. And they're running along this little white river, they call it. And it's in a little valley called Grass Mountain and Spring Creek and Rosebud. This place really does exist. And so they followed this man that looked like this tall man, and it led them into a cave. And in this cave, there's like a rock bridge to it even. And so they go into it, and this big giant man, whatever it is, runs into the cave. And they've all been to this cave before, and they know there's no way out. And so they surround the cave now. And so they will shoot an arrow every now and then, or they'll throw a rock in there, but nothing. And so they started doing it again. They started throwing rocks and shooting arrows in there, and finally it just made him angry. And so the guy did come out and showed himself, and it was this kind of a scary guy, I guess, and real tall, and everybody was trying to fight it and attack it, and it wasn't doing anything. Well, there was a young man, and his name was Little Eagle. Wamblichika. And so Little Eagle was brave. He found courage, and he had within himself in his hand a long spear, right? This big long stick with a pointy end at the end like a rock. And he starts running with the spear, and everybody, all the Lakota men and everybody, they all yelling because they see him running and they know it's Little Eagle, so they're yelling, "Kielkampo, Kielkampo." And so everybody kind of gets out of the way, and so Little Eagle's running, and then he's, lunges his spear into this tall man, and then he just screams, and then he just disappears, just like in a movie. And so he disappears, and he's gone. And so all the warriors and everybody, they're all cheering, and they all come up and they start lighting all their torches, and they start walking inside the cave. And they did find the two babies, and they were still alive, but there were other bones scattered among the floor of the cave. And so it kind of gave everybody the chills and made everybody afraid. And well, anyways, this thing, they sure was gone though, because Little Eagle found courage and killed it. And so they went back to camp. And then in the morning time, Little Eagle's grandma, of course, right? The grandma's so proud of his grandson that she's got to just tell everybody, right? So grandma's telling everybody all the great deeds and what happened and what Little Eagle did. And so they decided to have a hunkapi, a making of relatives, a name ceremony, one of the 7 rites, one of the 7 sacred rites that Desawi, the white buffalo calf woman, brought to us. She came and brought us the gift of the pipe, and with the gift of the pipe, she brought us other ceremonies, 6 other ceremonies, and one of them ceremonies was called the hunkapi, the hunka. And so Little Eagle's grandma was so proud that in the Lakota way, when we make accomplishments, we are recognized by our relatives, our friends, and so they go out of their way to rename you, to give you real name. You can have as many names as you want. You know, I've been called all kinds of names, but you know, not ceremony though. You know, so ceremony we all have. You know, I think it's part of our identity of who we are, and as Lakotas and Anishinaabe, you know, Dakotas, no matter what tribe, especially in this area, that's why I named those tribes. But everybody has a name, no matter even who you are, where you're from, German, you know, Switzerland, you all have name. We all have a name, right? We all have a story where we come from. We do accomplishments like even being born is an accomplishment, man. That's a tough journey. Does anybody remember being born? Sometimes I have a kid that'll raise his hand and tell me all about it. And I'm like, wow. But you know, making that journey even here is a hard one for everybody. And so like that's our selfless act as parents, grandparents. We need to name our children names, Ojibwe names, Anishinaabe, Lakota names, right? So this is important of our identity. Who we are leads the pathway to us. Another big project for our students, even in our school district, what's wrong? We could all name our children and we all can make relatives, and it'll just make everybody healthier and happier, because that's a two-part ceremony when we do naming ceremony. Not only does the child or you know, the young one get a name, they make a relative. It's like godparents or adoption, or they call it Wan in Anishinaabe world, you know, or Lakota, we call it Hunka. We make relatives, and maybe we fill a void, even like maybe we need a father or uncle or auntie or a sister or even a little brother or something. So we fill the void. We make relatives, and so imagine if all of our students or if all of our children, if we made our own ceremony in our own community and we made relatives with people that we weren't blood related to, it'd be great, right? That's a huge concept. We could all be related to everybody in our community. That would be so cool. You can go next door and borrow a pound of hamburger from the guy you just met, and you can go across the street and get a whole bunch of Kool-Aid from grandma you just met, right? That means a great thing. We can all live together, right? Healthy. That's kind of like what we're doing at center school, and you know, we're naming our students, and I think that's important for our identity. And so grandma says all this in a good way. We're going to rename Little Eagle because he just killed the biggest, craziest thing around, right? And he saved these children, and he's not just a young man anymore. He's growing up to be a bigger name, right? And so I remember in the story, the men, they yelled out Kilkampo. And if some of you are really good listeners in the beginning, I introduced myself as Kilkampi. In our Lakota language, we have a language gender. Our language is gender roles. The male have a way of speaking and the females have a way of speaking. And it's just the way it is. And so when the men were yelling at Little Eagle, they were saying Kilkampo, and which means a lot of things, really. But to them at that moment, that means like, get out of the way, right? Make room for him. Make room for this guy. He's coming in. Kilkampo. They're yelling. That's what they were saying. Kilkampo. So, but when my grandma retells the story, she speaks from a woman's, an elder's voice. And so she says, Kilkampi. And so the ironic thing about this whole story is I'm a man. I like to think I'm a man. I'm a man, and but my name is Kilkampi, which it has a feminine side to it. I have a girl's name. Oh my God, I'm like a ladybug. And so Kilkampi, this is the word, this is Little Wambali Chikala. Little Eagle is no longer Little Eagle no more. He is now Keelkumpy, right? That's a huge name. Makes room for them. And so Makes Room for Them is now his new name. And out of this story and being told for thousands and thousands of times over, here I am, Keelkumpy. I am Little Eagle. If I want to change my name back to Little Eagle, I think I have every right to. And my relatives even said this to me. But I like Makes Room for Them. I try to live up to it. If there's so many people and you need a ride, you may have to jump in my trunk. I'm going to make room for you guys somewhere, somehow. You guys are riding on the floor or something. I don't know. Get on the hood. There's always going to be room when you're rolling with me, right? And there's always you can have my last bite. You can have my last drink of my pop. Stay away from my bologna sandwich, though, right? That's mine. And so, these names are important, Keelkumpy, and I'm very proud of that name. And like when I think about that story, even it's just like, how does that relate to today? What does all those things mean today? Like, do I have to save somebody? Do I have to is there a monster out there that I need to spear? Can I do that metaphysics? Can I do that in a good way? Can I fight for my people in a different way now? Yeah, I think storytelling is one way because it brings us back to our grassroots, and identity is very important to who we need to be, who we are. Always be proud of who you are. Don't ever beat yourself up for who you are or who you can't be or who you think you can't be, right? You are somebody. You have a story. Everybody does. And if you don't, then make one up. Make it good. Make it just as bad as mine, right? Make it as cool as mine. I almost swore there, but that's how passionate I am. Anyways, so it's and I know some of you knows some of your stories. I know you do, right? Somebody you know a story. You know how you got your name, even your first name, right? Identity is important. Find out who you are. Learn your language. Be proud of who you are, and then you become whole, right? I'm half Apache. My mom is a full-blood Apache, White Mountain Apache in Arizona, and my dad is a full-blood Rosebud Lakota. And so, there's been a long time where I didn't really acknowledge my Apache side because I don't know why. And I think I do have a reason why, and it's I'm kind of embarrassed to realize what my reason why, but I've grown out of it, right? And I think it had everything to do with where I was, ideally, right? Like my location, I grew up here in the Midwest, in Rosebud, in South Dakota, in Duluth, and now I'm in Minneapolis, and this is Lakota country. And so I think it would be the same way if I grew up all my life in Arizona and White Mountain Apache and I didn't know anything about Lakota living. I'd probably be like, hey, I'm Apache. Geronimo is my grandpa. But I've learned to say both now. So you can't you know what? If you mess with an Apache and a Lakota, you're messing with some trouble, right? Those are some superpowers, man. If you know your history and you know about anyways, I'm gonna go into another story. I see the time; it's 7:39, and I have till 8, so I'm gonna try to squeeze another one in real quick. Because I think I have this ability that I could probably talk all night. Does anybody want to stay on until midnight? All right, we'll take turns, right? It's storytelling. All right. So I was thinking of another story, and I think because we have a lot of students here, and they do want to use some of this for curriculum. I do have a great story for you that I could tell, and I'm going to test all of you guys on your listening and your ingenuity. I'm going to test your nativeness, right? It's not about blood quantum this time. It's about thinking deep thinking deep way down inside. And you know what? Who's going to get the answer? Some little kid that's like 7 years old. That's who. All you adults out there think you're so smart. All right, I'm going to tell you the story. I'm going to mislead you. I'm even going to lie to you even. But I'm not going to add to it. I'm not going to make up things. I'm going to retell it just the way it is. That's been told for thousands of years. And then I'm going to ask you a question at the end because it's going to be a little twist at the end. And this is actually real teachings. And I was fortunate enough to actually go through this little test. My older uncles, they put me to a side and they said, well, in a funny way, just the way I said it to you, they said it to me, right? I'm going to test your Lakota-ness. And I was like, oh, great. And I'm going to be a failure at being a Lakota now. Oh, my God. Anyways, it was good. And you know what? I didn't get the answer. But here I am. I'm still Lakota. My God, the world's still revolved and I'm still here. But I've retold this in this area in the school district, and there have been a handful of small kids that got the answer. And I'm so happy and proud of that. And I know some of you will get this answer out there. And I wish we were in a bigger space so I can see your little hands and your voices and all your answers, because the answers to this story are great. They're all over the spectrum when I ask this question at the very end, all right? So I'm going to go right into the story because we have like 15 minutes left. So if I don't get into the story, I'm never going to ever tell it. All right. Long ago, there's a place not too far away. If you start driving that way towards the sun sets, maybe about 8 hours on I-90, there's a place called Makashicha, Badlands. In the Badlands of South Dakota, there lives a cave long ago. And in this cave, and this place still exists. People get lost looking for this place today. It's a sacred place. And well, in this place, there lives a grandma, an old woman, and her dog, a black dog. And they live in the cave. And inside the cave, in the middle of the room, is a fire. And on that fire is a little pot made out of earth. And in that pot is a bunch of berries that are boiling, and those are choke cherries. All the berries are boiling in this pot that's in the fire, that's making a light, that's in the center of the room. And so what grandma's doing is she's quilling. She's using porcupine quills, and she flattens them with her mouth, and she sews them onto a buffalo hide, really big buffalo hide. And she's halfway through even. The pot that sits in the center on the fire that boils purple is a dye. And so what she's doing is she's putting the porcupine quills inside this boiling pot because she wants to make the color purple for her beautiful design that she's making. So she makes other colors that also different colors, different plants for different colors. Choke cherries is boiling now, and they're making purple. Everything I'm saying has a symbolism to it. So remember that every word means something. I'm literally saying words on purpose. And so she puts the quills into the pot that's boiling on the pot, the light that's in the center of the room. And she goes and walks towards the direction because it starts to overboil. And she goes there and she steers the pot in a clockwise circle over and over and steers it over. And every time that she gets up to go steers the pot, the black dog gets up and nibbles on some of the quills that she just sewed on. Because the dog knows that if she ever finishes this beautiful buffalo hide, the world is going to end. So grandma steers the pot and she goes back and sits down and she starts to resew the stuff, the dog. She has to fix everything she just did. Then again, the pot starts to boil. And so she gets up, walks to the center where the light is, where the pot is, where the chokecherry berries are boiling, and she steers it in a clockwise manner. And when she does, the dog chews off some of the quills that she just sewed up. Then she goes back down and sits down and fixes what she just did. And then eventually it starts to boil again. And then she has to get up and walk to the center again where the pot is boiling on the fire, on this light, where the chokecherries are boiling. And then she steers it in a clockwise manner. And then when she does, the dog nibbles off some of the quills that she just sewed on. And then she walks back and sits down, and then she starts fixing what the dog just took off. And then again, the boil starts to boil again. Then she has to get up and walk towards the center where the light is, where the fire is, where the pot is, where the chokecherries are boiling. And she steers it in a clockwise manner. And then it kind of settles down a little bit. And then while she does it, the black dog chews the quills off, and she has to walk, and she goes back and she sits down, and then she has to resew whatever the dog just undid. Now, I purposely said things even certain amount of times, and certain amount of things I said in a certain way. Now I'm going to also mention that this was a story about the end of the world, right? But here's the big question of all, and you guys are all listening and everything, and now I'm going to ask you, the story is not about the end of the world. It's about this. What are those answers? And how are we going to do this, Mindy? This is your ultimate test of, if you get this answer, I'm going to send you a certificate that says you are Native American, official Native American. All right, I want you to think about these answers, and I don't know, put them in the chat maybe, because I'm really interested to see all these great answers. Mm-hmm. Because I'm going to tell you what the answer is if we don't come up with an answer.
Yeah, people can type in the chat, or if they raise their hand so that we don't have people talking over each other, if people are nervous about that, you could raise your hand and we could call you out, or you could just unmute.
And I can tell you, I can give you one hint that the answer to this can be said in less than 5 words. But sometimes people can say this really long thing because it's so beautiful. What is the story about? Like, what are the things that I said 4 times? Or how many times I just revealed some things? There's something here that happened. And I know we're waiting for students and stuff, but like I'm open for anybody, like even you smarty pants adults, you know, like I'm very interested, because when I have said this story lots of times, it's always the little kids that get these answers right. So it's really it's cool. I didn't even get this answer right. So out of everything I said, the story, it was misleading. It's not a story about the end of the world. It's about this. Any brave souls out there? Repairing continually, Nathan Schultz. That's a great answer, but unfortunately it's not the answer we're looking for tonight.
Javay raised her hand so she can unmute and share.
So when you said 4 times, it makes me think about the seasons. And
don't say no more, because that is the answer. The changing of seasons. Take me to your leader. You are the chosen one. All right, what is your name? Javay?
Javay.
My name is Javay.
Well, Javay, you have great listening skills, or maybe you're just connected. Maybe you're Mother Nature in disguise. Who knows, right? Like maybe you're here hanging out with us. I don't know. But That's the great answer, and that's the answer I'm looking for. And the changing of seasons. Can you see and relate to see the story of how that could be? Good, because I can't. I'm just kidding. I realize though when I think deeper on it, the berries, the choke cherries, right? They have to flower, and it takes a long time for this process to get to a tree, to bud, to the flower, to get to, like, that was one of the hints I could figure out, was like the choke cherries had everything, a lot of seasonal berries, and like the light, going towards the light, the darkness, like going back and forth, like we do that right on these equinoxes. Like winter, we go towards the darkness maybe, and then now we're going towards the light. So that's changing a season. And so like, to me, that's a really good story, to a real critical thinking. And I hope that you guys use this in your, in your lessons. Even this great example of the Zoom that you guys recorded tonight could be a lesson in your guys' rooms or homes or whatever. And anyways, that's all I have. I'm open for like if any questions or comments. I don't know everything, but I might know a little bit about something. If we want to talk a little bit about storytelling or whatever, anything, discussion, reflection, comments.
Some of you guys are educators. Don't be shy. You know what it's like to be on the other end. Like, does anybody have any questions or comments? And everybody's like, nervous. Keiko, is a Keiko. Don't be scared.
I mean, that's fine too if nobody does, and it's good that we all get to listen and got to hear some of our answers. And anyways, that's the art of storytelling, I guess, and I'm glad I got to do a little part of it with you guys tonight, and I would love even to do more. Like somebody did say, hey, 4 nights of storytelling, like maybe next year it could be that way, right? We could bring back the old ways, start practicing bring back some of our old ways, right? It was like four nights of storytelling. That'd be cool. That's pretty legit. Like leave everybody hanging every night. Anyways, sometimes we just adapt and overcome, and we do the best we can in our storytelling. And I see someone has his hand up.
Yeah, it's funny you just said adapt and overcome. You've said that twice tonight, and it's not a phrase that I've heard very often. And I wonder if it has an origin or a story that goes with it.
It does. It's kind of my own personal journey of being in the Marine Corps. Joined the Marine Corps, and that was kind of our motto, was adapt and overcome. It's like you have to, and like it even goes deeper. It's like adapt and overcome, and so I've just been living kind of by that motto everywhere I go, and adapt and overcome.
It sounds like the right motto for our time.
It is. We are doing that. We're all surviving a pandemic. We really are. So take it easy on our kids, our students. Take it easy on yourself. Even don't be so hard on yourself. We're all in this together, and be as safe as we can, and be helpful, and be encouraging. Let's not have any lateral violence and things like that. I know those are big words to use in such a big audience, but like we have to learn how to live together healthy, and we all here sharing together our space, our kids and students are all anyways, don't get me started. Anyways, I appreciate your comment, and it's adapt and overcome. I think no matter who you are, that's what we got to do to survive.
I appreciated that you shared that you're Lakota and Apache, but that for some time, because of where you grew up and that you didn't know about your, like, didn't really know about your Apache side, like you were more surrounded by your Lakota ways, that you like didn't even identify as Apache, right? And I think that so many of our students are a mix of different things, and oftentimes we do walk through our life not identifying with some part of ourselves, right? And so I appreciated that you shared, like, hey, there was this time in my life where I didn't really identify with this part of me. I didn't really see myself this way, and I kind of disconnected and I didn't vocalize it. But now, as you've grown and gotten older, that you have grown to understand and love and identify with all parts of yourselves. And I think that in itself was a really beautiful teaching that you shared.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, like I'd like to be a voice for some of our students, because maybe I couldn't say these things when I was little, you know. Like it was there was a short time in my life when I was little where I was kind of ashamed of being an Indian, really. I was the only brown kid with long hair in the 80s in Duluth, Minnesota. And I went to Chester Park School. And it was culture shock for me. And with a name like Makes Room for Them Too. And with a a room full of other kids my same size and peers, same age. And they haven't seen a brown person either. That's how it was where I went. And so it was a lot of weird culture shock for both sides. And sometimes maybe, you know, the older kids teased me or my last name, and I didn't know how to respond to that. I was too little. I didn't know. I didn't want to say, hey, you should hear my last name. You should hear I got it. I didn't say all that. I just was ashamed even. And identity is important. So never be ashamed of who you are. Love yourself. And you know what I mean? So that's my learning thing of where I come from. And that's why it's very important, identity, like who you are. Be proud of who you are. A lot of our Native students are mixed, you're right. And they're mixed with non-Native blood. And sometimes I see lateral violence of our young teenagers teasing other students for being white. And we need to call, if you're listening to me and you're a student and you know what I'm going through, then it's okay to stand up for yourself. It's okay to stand up for others, to have a voice. Say what you feel, even if it's like, hey, stop it. Whatever it is, you know, don't be afraid to stand up and be proud of who you are. And I wish somebody would have told me these things when I was going through. Some of you kids are going through this your own self, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Tatamayaye. Miigwech for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. There are a couple people had written in the chat, and they were asking when you're telling stories again. Currently, we do not have Rocky on our schedule for a future speaking event at this time. So I guess I'm wondering, Rocky, do you have any other speaking storytelling events coming up anytime soon?
Actually, I do. And I think some of you might have even been in my other ones. I did like 6 of them already in the community. And some of them were huge. The other one was like 450 people in there. I was like blown away. Anyways, we're doing another one in a couple of weeks through Hope Flanagan's seed program. I think it's called Dream of Wild Health. So I don't know. The only way I know about some of this stuff is it's going to be on Facebook at an event. So I am going to do a story, another one. I think that'll be my last storytelling, but I'll be telling a different story. So like, if you can get in on that one, do it, because every one of these stories at storytelling events, I was able to squeeze in all different stories. So it was really cool. Otherwise, like, I'd be glad to do more storytelling with you guys. I think it would be a really cool series to have, like 4 nights of storytelling, maybe different people every night. But it's just something to do in the future, you know, so we could bring back the old ways of storytelling. But Jill Lynn has her hand raised.
Hi there. Say, I just wanted to make a comment about how I think this is a really positive outcome from COVID and the pandemic and the situation that we're in. Is I personally have never had easy access to storytelling and things like this. And not only is I work for the program, I work with Mindy and I work with Gabriella. And not only are we doing this, but I went to a storytelling last night, I think it was, and one last week, and I am enjoying this so much. And hearing stories from all different perspectives, and it's just been such a huge learning opportunity for me and exposure. One of the teachers from one of my schools was here tonight. I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to educate the people who are educating the students that I work with, and being able to understand them in a new way. So for all the negative that has come, there's been so much positive, and I'm so glad you are here with us tonight. Your stories were great, and I laughed so much. I love the comment about the baloney. So thank you for being with us, Rocky.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for being who you are.